Tomorrow, City Council meets, and one issue top of mind is Mayor Lori Lightfoot's plan to use $12 million in city funds to give away prepaid gas cards and CTA passes. Another top issue outside of tomorrow's meeting is the search for the city's casino. Yesterday, the special committee on the casino met. And joining us to talk about all of this and more are Alderman Brian Hopkins of the 2nd Ward on the north side, Alderman Gilbert Villegas of the northwest side, 36th Ward and chair of the Latino caucus, Alderman Pat Dowell, who represents the 3rd Ward on the near south side, and Alderman Jason Irvin, representing the 28th Ward on the west side and chair of the council's Black Caucus. Welcome all of you back to Chicago tonight. Good to see you. I want to start, before we get to those other things, Alderman Hopkins, with the violence this weekend, the most violent weekend of the year so far, also the warmest weekend of the year, and we saw those groups of troublemakers along Michigan Avenue near Millennium Park. CPD said that it had been prepared for that. What happened?
They were prepared. We had a plan to deal with it, but the plan required a larger number of patrol officers on the ground to respond to the size of the crowd. It was approaching 500 at its peak, and we weren't quite expecting 500. We could have probably handled, say, less than 200, maybe 150. The plan and the resources would have been adequate, but we were simply outnumbered, and we just couldn't respond quick enough.
Alderwoman Dowell, what do you need to hear from the police department to give you confidence that this summer won't be as violent as last summer's, as we're looking at the weather warming up eventually here?
Well, as we approach summer, we all get a little worried about what's going on in our respective wards. What I need to hear from the CPD is that they're prepared to handle some of the things that we experience in the 3rd Ward. For example, unauthorized gatherings near parks, motorcycles riding down Michigan Avenue. Those are the main problems that we see during the summer. We have begun to have conversations with some of our commanders to put in measurements related to parking, talking to our commanders about signage and all of those things. But the real issue is being prepared for these crowds that, as Brian Hopkins says, you never know what the size of those crowds are going to be.
So a lot to be concerned about as we get warmer here. Alderman Irvin, I want to turn to the casinos. It looks like so far that all 3 of the casino proposals will get a no vote from the alder people that represent those specific wards. Is any one of these proposals going to pass City Council?
Well, I think that we're very early in the process as it relates to the casino proposals, and we really have to dive into the details of them all. There were some initial pieces that were done, which were outlined in the booklet that was given to all of the members of council. I know that they're based on public input in the community meetings. There have been other asks of the casino operators, and we'll see what the best and final offers look like from all 3 parties.
And Alderman Villegas, we're hearing reports now that the Bally's had offered $25,000 up front, and now the city is actually soliciting $75,000 up front in cash from the winner. What exactly is that about?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. Are you sure it was 75,000?
That was million.
Actually. I'm sorry, 75 million. 75 million.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
$75,000 would be a drop in the bucket. You're right.
If that's the case, we all will buy one.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So 75 million. I think it's really just to let them know that they have really skin in the game. Yesterday's meeting that took place, you heard from a lot of the colleagues that we want something. We just don't know what it is yet. I would have liked to have seen all 5 proposals and not just 3, because I really would have wanted to see what the cost value would have been for the city from all 5 proposals and not just 3. And also what we saw out of that hearing yesterday was that this is a union town and that we want to make sure that there are PLAs in place. We want to make sure that there's card check neutrality in place. We want to make sure that working families are going to be working at these projects. And if it's non-union, I'm telling you right now, it's a no-go for me.
All right, so that's a big issue for you, is that those jobs are going to be union. Alderman Hopkins, you've come out against the Bally's proposal at the Chicago Tribune printing press site. How come?
Well, the overwhelming opposition from my community. Alderman Riley, my neighboring alderman, did a survey. One of the more prominent residents associations also did a survey. it came back about 80% of the residents are strongly opposed. It's not even close. I can't swim against such a tide of opposition in my neighborhood, and I'm not going to, nor should I. That's my job as the elected official. I'm supposed to represent the prevailing sentiments of the neighborhood, and it's clear on this one. There really isn't any room for doubt. So I came out against that particular site, primarily due to the traffic congestion and some of the other issues. I have not yet taken a position in favor of anyone, but after the meeting yesterday, I'm prepared to announce for the first time on this show, I'll say it, I am in support of the 78 Rivers Casino. I believe that is the best proposal I've seen so far, and it's the right thing to do for the city.
All right, the 78 Rivers proposal, which would be on Roosevelt Road there. Alderwoman Dowell, you've come out against the Hard Rock proposal, which would be at the One Central development, yet to be built over the train tracks there near Soldier Field. How come?
For some of the same reasons that I'm hearing from my colleague. My constituents are overwhelmingly opposed to the Hard Rock Casino proposal for reasons of, having such a large entertainment, 24-hour entertainment destination location adjacent to a family-friendly residential community, right close to the backyards and patios and balconies of many of my constituents. We have to deal with issues related to congestion that they experience all year, long when the Bears are playing, to congestion and parking issues, to concerns that they have for litter, noise, bright lights, crime. All of these matters have to be carefully considered. It's unusual, I think, to put a casino smack dab up against a residential community. When I think of casinos, I think of the Horseshoe or Rivers Casino out in Rosemont. Those are in business areas, industrial areas, and not in residential communities. So we're going to have to take a hard look at the other two on the table. But right now, the Hard Rock proposal in my community is dead on arrival.
All right, and as Alderman Irvin mentioned still early in the process here, I want to move on to the gas cards because that's going to get a vote tomorrow, that $12 million gas giveaway program. Alderman Irvin, it barely cleared committee. Is it going to have the votes to pass tomorrow?
I believe it will have the votes to pass because we know that many members of our communities are hurting. I think the changes in looking at the low mobility areas, the red and the orange areas on the map, I think will help because these are individuals that in many cases don't view public transportation as the best option and tend to drive. And we know that our residents are having challenges. And I think this is something that we can do that's positive and works in their benefit. I think that, voting against this really is voting against the interests of our constituents throughout the city. So I'm hopeful and I believe that the votes will be there tomorrow to pass it.
Alderman Villegas, what can you tell constituents about how this will work and whether it will go to the folks that really need it the most?
Yeah, I think that it will pass tomorrow as well, given that there's been a little bit of an expansion in the areas that will capture more folks that are hurting. I would have rather seen the additional $12.5 million gone to the guaranteed basic income pilot. So that way we could have helped additional families, not just for 2 or 3 weeks, but really for a whole year. So as much as I would have liked to see it gone to that program, I'll be supporting this gas card initiative because now it captures additional families and our office will be ready to disseminate information and help folks apply for the lottery.
All right, well, we'll watch that vote tomorrow, and we'll have to leave it there for now, but we'll be joined again by the Chicago City Council members later in the program to discuss ethics and much more. But for now, our thanks to Alderpeople Brian Hopkins, Gilbert Villegas, Pat Dowell, and Jason Irvin.